guys do the next one job of talking about the problems on this. There's some seriously hard problems. So.
Well, Dan, here's one thing. I would say to most of you guys is that in the model where we're relying on some of the execution engines and services inside of the operating system to help out with this, I think it would be tremendously beneficial as you're looking at standardization things, whether it's the some of the virtual client specs or look further or things in this area. I mean, together, you have a lot of ability to influence and say, hey, operating system should be a standard way to present direct pressure. These are my solutions, right? If both of you guys agree on things like that, those are incredibly important building blocks for doing this stuff. And they're really just very basic primitive, but it's not like value differentiation. So if you could just identify that piece and say, this is a standard way of how I do that. If you guys agree on it, so it all happen, and then we can in parallel, a bunch of people can explore how to solve this.
Not being as deeply prepared as even a prepared solution. We're already just sort of thinking of those as black boxes, those sorts of problems as things that that operating system people negotiate on, right?
Right.
Like the same way TCP/IP is influenced by us, right? That people figure that out on how to do. Certainly, Windows is the elephant in the room, like us going into records and stuff. It would rock if WMI did this now. Like they would say, that's awesome. Right there.
Yeah, but you don't have to lie. But there's going to be some set of services that operating systems are going to provide currently to support virtualization environments that seem to be a given, especially if you want the advanced capability stuff.
It doesn't mean we don't try. I agree with you. We should always put forth the efforts and here's a standard and vendor judge, but this is what we should do.
Well, I think what we've proven thus far, though, is that because there's so much value in the question people can ask, that the value that customers receive of that drives those changes. So,
then we don't hire you within the application stack. The older those parts are in the customer environment, so OS might be 5 years behind, the database might be 10 years behind. The reality is what you do that sort of.
Right, so now we talk about a set of problems that don't just give us a headache because Dan can go solve it much more. Dan, if you get dtrace,
Say again?
no.
So it's funny because my last slide, I think I titled it something like, controversial questions, question mark, or something like that. And yeah, I don't think they're nearly as controversial as I think it's going to be pretty pedestrian, actually. So I'll stand. I'd rather stand. So my name's Dan Price. I've been at Sun for almost 10 years. And actually know Keith from back in Providence, Rhode Island, a long time ago. And so anyway, I was going to quickly talk about zones and dtrace. For those who may not be that familiar with what zones are, wow, I can turn the page. So this is our in-operating system virtualization facility in, what's going on here? Am I on auto slideshow or something? Okay.
Yeah, pause.
I just want the, how do I?
Left arrow?
Okay, so the good news basically, so we have this in-operating system virtualization facility. Folks from the FreeBSD crowd, it's similar in a way to FreeBSD jails. It certainly is inspired from the jails work. But we've done a whole bunch of kind of a further build out. So one of the things we could do with zones, for example, is to support other operating system personalities. Now that's a personality emulation. It's not a virtual machine, and this actually kind of is a confusion point for some of our customers. But so the first, and we call those brands, kind of like Coke versus Pepsi. But I've started to say personalities because I think customers figure that out better. So the first one we built was the LX brand, and actually Adam was involved in that. Did some really cool work to make dtrace play well with that. We've also more recently developed the Solaris 8 brand for customers running older OSs and stuff, and to be able to get them to migrate and host on Solaris 10. One of the things we like to kind of shop in front of them is, hey, now you can dtrace your Solaris 8 application stack, and they go, woo, and much rejoicing basically.
So Dan, just pause on that point because I know a couple of you are involved in practices to take you from Solaris 8 to Solaris 10. So definitely absorb what Dan just said. You've got customers that you're showing that want to stay on Solaris 8. And Ben will looking at you.
They want to stay on Solaris 8, but also move to Solaris 10.
Yeah. So, in those of you migrate.
Would you classify this as a gateway drug?
Tell me again.
Would you classify this as a gateway drug?
Maybe. So another thing that we definitely have heard about, and this was first uttered by actually some customer that maybe Brian or somebody else was talking to, sort of said, well, if I have zones and I've got some trace, does that mean I can just deploy my multi-tier application in like different zones and then just trace the whole thing? And, oh, yeah, that'd be great. You should go do that. So that's actually, so I wondered if anyone in the room has actually thought to do that. So four. One, two, a couple. All right. Cool. And then I did a bunch of work about 18 months ago now, maybe it was 2 years ago, to basically do some dtrace work inside of zones. This was one of the things that, because there was sort of dtrace was happening and zones was happening, all these different projects were happening at the same time. Not all of the possible different integration points happened all at once. So what we support inside of zones is basically everything you could do as with the dtrace proc and dtrace user privileges. That is to say, things like blockstat and user-level probes inside of Java, Ruby, Python, etc. will work. Other things like system call provider, FBT, blockstat, all that stuff that observes kernel state is off limits because the kernel is shared across all those applications. I'll talk more about that in a sec. I see your hand raised.
Yeah, maybe you'll get to that in a bit. With the new and improved unique IP instance zones, can I use Brendan's network provider instance?
Well, that's, I'll get there.
Okay.
No, but I'll get there. The question was, can I use this wonderful NFS, thing? Can I use the all these other providers that have been done? Okay. So just on the kind of code side, so providers can register with a special flag. That's kind of how we know what they support. And then basically I had to do, it was really interesting. In the end, it was only maybe about 200 lines of code change, but it took me about, embarrassingly, something like 3 to 4 months to work out because it had to fit kind of a lot of dtraces the way it kind of decides what you can and can't do in my brain, and it took me quite a while to figure that out. So hopefully I left behind some comments. There were lots of comments, but I left behind a lot more comments for the next person who has to come along here. But in short, I mean, something to think about if you were trying to restrict for example, if you're, I don't know what the FreeBSD folks in the room have done, but if you want to do this with jails, I think this work really translates to what you might want to do there. So we have, we have restrictions on visibility of probes. We figure out, what probes do you have the right to use. We did work to figure out, what destructive probes. So basically, there's already the notion that, if I'm a regular user, I can use, using dtrace, I can do things like, send a signal to some application I have, I can do the raise destructive action. So, we basically utilize that mechanism. And I had to do some sort of rework to the access to data mechanism that, which was kind of troublesome. So here's my controversial, but probably not very controversial slide. So the first thing is kind of a warp in the existing, for example, the first thing people do is they go, I'm going to run this dtrace toolkit, and he's got IO top and PS top and I don't know, whatever, 7 kinds of top, right? And probably TCP now and NFS and whatever. Well, the problem is those things don't typically work right inside of a zone. So one problem, of course, is that they may be observing kernel state, so that kind of knocks them out. But even if they're not observing kernel state and all they're doing is like gathering probes and periodically printing them out, the problem is all that stuff hangs off of the profile provider. Okay, and the problem is that when you're in a restricted context like this, and the profile provider, ticks off once every 5 seconds to dump out your display, well, that interrupt may wind up happening to some process that's not in your zone. Right, at which point you can't ever see that fire. So that's kind of a problem, and actually that's also a problem for regular users using it.
Well, and to generalize this, and to really want to get controversial, but I mean, in terms of the Apple guys, I know you've got to be recognizing some of the DRM issues in terms of where you want to, you need for other reasons. So even you've got a single zone, but for other reasons you need to restrict observability into a process as though we may not like that, that being a reality. I mean, you can see a similar.
So originally, I guess when I thought of this problem, I thought, well, I need another provider, one that reliably provides, timer events to the thing, so that we can, print out the output every 10 seconds or whatever. But I talked to Jonathan about this a little bit earlier, and we sort of came up with the kind of goofy name of like context-free probe. That is to say, the probe fires were the probe fires that maybe don't get to know anything else. Maybe. It's just kind of a straw proposal.
So, Steve, when you talk about porting, we want to kind of bring this issue up again in your world.
The other thing that I see that would be really nice would be some mechanism to kind of cook up some kernel providers in a way that is safe to run in a restricted environment. So for example, inside of the zone, because the all the proc probes, like oh, we forked the exec, we sent a signal, whatever, because all of those things are all STT probes, you can't see those inside the zone. So it's actually fairly difficult to write some of the stuff that wants to observe the zone as a system inside of the zone. So I think it would be really cool if we could brainstorm. I don't actually know how to solve that problem, but it would be really cool if we could figure out a way to solve that problem. The syscall provider is a good example of something that's widely used in a lot of scripts, but you can't actually run inside of your zone. So, and then I'll just close very quickly because I know everybody wants to eat, and this is the worst time slot. So I actually have this is a Niagara class system here, and I have a bunch of zones on here, but one of them you can see here is actually running the Solaris 8 brand. And so my demo really consists only of checking slowly. And actually all I'm going to do is just, I think this is kind of a neat illustration of one of the neat things that keep talking about food performance. And so we've done some of this stuff too, is, so here we are in the global environment where the latency is really rough. And let's see, so we'll just restrict this to zone name equals S8, which is the name of the zone, and then we'll aggregate on probe phone. Let's do exactly. So here we can find out who is misbehaving, pretty much. Okay, syntax checkers. Okay, and I'm just gonna park this in the. I'm just gonna put this in the background, and I'll show an ADM SA reboot. And also, I should mention, since Richard's in the room, I just want to compliment and thank Richard because he was instrumental in helping us get this Solaris 8 zones project off the ground.
You can show the console button?
I can. I was going to flip back, but sure, I'll quickly look at the console.
Just a second.
There you go. It should be. Maybe I don't know the root password. I'll see. Okay, apparently I'm locked out because I don't know the root password. So anyway,
The process is
crap. I lost my login machine. Unfortunately, sorry about that.
MDB minus W.
Sorry about that. See if I got it going. Wonderful. Thank you, Bash. All right, so we'll run this experiment one more time. I won't log in this time. So, ADM, see, SA boot, we'll reboot the thing, and then we will put the trace back in the foreground. Yeah, I could. I mean, I'm just going to give it a couple seconds because we saw how quickly it came to the console login. So we just give it a little while and then we control C, and we can see, okay, by system call, here's
all the shit we shipped in Solaris 8.
yeah. Oh look, LP stat and our favorite EMI service provider Newman. So many of our past heroes of Solaris programs.
What is RC? Oh yeah, RC. Back in the day.
Yeah. So anyway, so this is just kind of an example of and actually I don't have the web page to show, but maybe Eric later on, if Eric is still here somewhere, or Truck. We actually built a utility on top of all this stuff that's a kind of a clone of something out in the Linux world called Boot Chart, which basically lets you kind of display the startup order and stuff graphically. And we can hook that both into the global zone, but we can also use that to observe zone starter, which is a really nice way to kind of turn the crank on these performance improvements. So anyway, that's all I have. Let's eat.
Cool. Thank you. Claire, do you have anything to say about how are we ready to eat now? Are we good to go?
To go, we have box lunches of all varieties, so you can keep it and I can't remember what else I ordered, but it's all good. And then if you're not up to that, there are some salads and some sausage. You need something just to maximum.
So, and
Let's see if I see
that's right. The eat now for order. Oh, company. So, and we'll get some eat, take a break, but in another 10 minutes or so, 10 15 minutes, let's get going on board stories. As our over lunch topic. I'm reading that. It's all the arrows. The arrows all over the so it's not. It's interesting. Yeah,